Welcome to Shooting the Breeze. We are live from the Quaycentre in Homebush in Sydney, where we're going to be able to see a great matchup between the Flames and the Canberra Caps. It's their third matchup for the season. Joining us, Michelle Hocking from Canberra, who's made the trip up. And also, through the magic of technology, we've got my co-host, Jacinta Gavind, who's up on the Central Coast in Sydney. Sorry, up north of Sydney. And welcome both of you to the show.
It's great to be here, Paul. Always love coming on and being with you guys.
Awesome. All right, so, okay, I'm going to throw it over to you, Jacinta, first of all. How do you think this one's going to go? The last two games have been really close.
Oh, it'll definitely be close again. I'm predicting a very fast game. I think whoever hustles most is going to win this game because that seems to be UC Cap's strength more so. Like last season, but definitely this season, is that they just out hustle their opponents, and that's how they're able to be super competitive. So I think it's going to be really, really close. This is the perfect opportunity for the Flames to keep gelling the way they have in the last few games, to cement some really, really good habits heading into the final rounds of the season.
And Michelle?
Yeah, look, I'm with Jacinta on this. I think it's going to be a close match-up, and you're right, like Sydney have won the last two, but it's only been by a few points in both games. I think it was 5 points in round 3 and like 2 points in round 6. And both teams are really just in the last, probably since post-Christmas, have started to, gel as groups, because they were both very new groups at the start of the season. So they're really starting to gel and find their rhythm, and I think, Sydney have been buoyed by the fact that Tess Madgen's been back in the group consistently. And, I mean, she is just an amazing player who gives such great leadership. And the Caps are young, but they, as Jacinta said, they just bring the hustle and they bring the effort. And I think they will be keen, having lost their last game to Bendigo by about 20-odd, I think it was in the end. They'll be very keen to redeem themselves. They weren't happy with necessarily the second half of that game. They seemed to just go flat and lose legs. So I'm predicting it's going to be a close one. It's always a little bit of rivalry between Sydney and Canberra as well. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Absolutely, and I think one of the things it's a good story about both of these teams is they started off, they didn't necessarily have the greatest start to the season, but both of them have really started to rack up the wins and showing the form that they are capable of. How do you think, particularly for these two teams, this is helping to buoy their spirits as they're going into these games, as they're going into the back end of the season as well?
Well, I think for Sydney, because they're still in finals contention, so I think hopefully they're peaking at the right time, and the results are going to be able to fall in favour that they're going to be able to make the top 4. But I just want to go back to Michelle's point about having Tess Madgen in the fold. It's really interesting. I noticed, especially in the for the pink round against Perth, when Tess Madgen was on the floor, the rest of the team just seemed to be at greater sense of ease, knowing that she was out there, she's reliable. She, like Michelle said, she's such a good leader. And I think it's really important not to discredit that off the bat too quickly, because given that Tess was announced in the Opals squad, of critics online, particularly the Facebook mafia, were criticising Tess' inclusion in that squad. But I think it's very, very hard to replace leadership in someone that can provide that sense of ease in a team like Tess does.
Yeah, and I think that, like we talked about the fact that Sydney is still in the finals chase, if you like, and so they've got absolutely everything to play for. They're still pushing for a spot in that top 4 at the end of the season. And, the Caps, they're not going to make finals, right? But they are still out there every game. They've got nothing to lose. So Sydney have everything to play for, but the Caps have nothing to lose as well. So that brings just that intensity and value to the game that I think is going to make this a great encounter.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to keep in mind is Canberra can actually spoil some of the position as we get further on towards the back end of the season. So nothing's set yet.
That's right. It's really, really tight. We've still got, Sydney can make finals. Bendigo can still make finals. I think I haven't done the math because I just haven't thought it's going to be an option, but I don't think the Caps can actually get in there. And Adelaide are out of the race. But not only can teams potentially make the four, they can shape that four as well, determine where other teams potentially finish.
Yeah, and there's also the other side of it, which is playing for that position. How far up the ladder can the Caps get?
Yeah, exactly. I think any team, these are professional players and professional outfits, and they want to put their best foot forward every game. They want to win as many games as they can. They want to, come out as high on the ladder as they possibly can on the season. They have everything to play for, and I think, there's no doubt that the Caps have upset some, on paper, higher placed teams than them this season, and I think, Sydney are now finding their rhythm and form.
Okay, so Jacinta, look, before we started, we had a bit of a discussion about the Opals and how the Opals selection went. Let's spend a little bit of time talking about the Opals. I think it was an interesting team that's been put together. I think there's a lot of solid. It's a solid team. Obviously, there's been a lot of chatter on social media, as there always is. Why wasn't this person put in? Why did that person not get selected? It always happens, but I'm curious to get your opinion on what you think about this Opal squad that we've got going out to Brazil.
Yeah, it's a really interesting mix of experienced Opals who have been to Cups and Olympics already and qualifiers such as the one that they're heading to in Brazil, you said. Really good mix of experienced Opals, spanning generations, but so nice additions to our emerging Open, Jade Melbourne and Izzy Borlase. I think sometimes with these announcements, which, we're probably not wrote it, but I think it would save people a lot of necessarily emotional upset if we try and preface the announcements with the fact that a lot of people are still injured, and B, sometimes people will be invited and decline the invitation to attend, and that's also okay if an athlete chooses to do that. So I think the biggest question mark that people had was Annalie not making the final 12, but from what's been told, and I don't have this on, I haven't been told this by Annalie herself, purely what someone else has told me, but, there's a chance that perhaps sometimes people will just say, oh, actually, I'm not in the right, I can't really at this point in time for whatever reason, or I just want to focus on my WNBL or whatever like that, and they can start to go. So I think sometimes people just need to remember that there's also options. But having said that, you've got the likes of all the way up from LJ all the way down to Izzy Borlase. It's a very, very competitive squad. It's been very competitive even to make it into that 20 of the announcement. We saw people like Chloe Bibby and Lauren Nicholson omitted from that list, and that just shows how talented of a group that we have. I think something that's also really interesting that people were saying online that we need to start reflecting some of our quote-unquote old bigs, which I found hilarious because just because the players like Tolo and Kayla George are so long doesn't mean that they're old. They still got a lot of playing days.
Yeah, I think that one kind of goes back to this almost like a strange focus on the age of some of these players rather than looking at what are the results they're delivering. Look at the results that Kayla's delivered over the last 12 months. Look at what Tolo's been doing over in Europe over the last 12 months. How could you leave them out?
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. And I think part of it is that people don't understand how much better we've got at understanding the body, how athletes look after themselves and their ability to have long careers. I think, going back many years, it was quite unusual to have someone still playing at international level, sort of in their, beyond 30, if you like. But nowadays, the way that these women look after their bodies and their approach to it, the science that we have behind it, and the way that we manage the workload as well, I think has made a huge difference to the longevity of a player's career. And those players are experienced, they have the skill set, they know what they're doing, they know what's required, and if they're in form, you're definitely going to take those players along.
Yeah, and look, sorry, but I'd really like to be the one selling popcorn to the room where somebody turns around and says, yeah, but LJ, is she one of the older bigs that they were talking about?
I think she probably was. Yeah, you go, Sino.
Yeah, she was, yeah. She was one of the ones mentioned in this particular post. And I thought, okay, well, tell me you didn't watch the Women's World Cup, but telling me you didn't watch the Women's World Cup. Because she dropped, like 27 and 12 on Canada in that bronze match. Did she have 27 or she had 30? But she had a phenomenal move. So you want to try and tell me that LJ is too old to play at national level? Like, sit down.
Yeah, no, that just doesn't make sense. It's like, I think we're at a point where people come up with arguments just because it's social media and, they want to cause a little bit of outrage.
Keyboard warriors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, look, I think LJ's interesting because I have to be honest, Simon and I talked about who we thought would make it through, and when I had the conversation with Simon, my hesitation around LJ was only if she was not fit, because at the time she'd been in and out resting games. So that would be my only hesitation, because it's a lot of an ask to go, play in this season, travel to Brazil, play in a tournament, and then come back and play. So that would have been my only concern with her. And I'll be really upfront. I had the same question of Tess at the time is she going to be fit? If both of those guys are fit, you are absolutely taking it.
Well, hell yeah.
I think that's totally fair as well, Michelle. Like, fit versus being old is really different. Like, being old and being well enough to play and still being able to keep up, like, that's different from being fit, because as we know, both Tess and LJ have had some question marks or some niggles at the start of this WNBL season. But I wanted to check, Michelle, both you and Simon, during an episode of your UC Caps Weekly podcast, had your predicted Opal squad for this Brazil tournament, so ended up being the closest out of the two of you compared to the actual announced squad.
Yeah, look, Simon will claim that he was, but I put a lot of caveats on mine, and that was around the question marks around, obviously the decision has been Talbot and Wallace are out. If they were fit, I'd have them in. And my question was around LJ and Tess, because at that time they were just a few niggles, and I thought, are they going to take them or are they not? But yeah, no, Simon got one more than me. I didn't put Reed in. I'll be really upfront. I mean, she's had a phenomenal season, but I just didn't have her in my squad. I think, anyway, I just didn't have her in my 12.
No, that's fair enough. Did you have, who did you have? Did you have Rochi instead, perhaps, or Heel?
No, I didn't have them. I had Rochi.
You had Rochi, that's right, either those two. Yeah.
And look,
kind of once you put it down on paper, it kind of leaves your mind, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, who wants to be Sandy Brondello? Because as you said, Jacinta, we have so much talent in this country, or available to us that are playing in Europe, that, there's going to be some unlucky misses. There are some people who possibly could have been there, and for whatever reason, as you said, some people may not have made themselves available. There's some unlucky misses.
Yeah, I mean, I think being a selector for the Opals with the talent that we've got available to us, as you said, not only in Australia but also in Europe, has got to be one of the toughest jobs in basketball.
Coaching's tough.
Yeah, I would love it if there's some more tournament opportunities to have an Australian Opal side, and then like they're doing, could have an Australia A and have like the next best 12 that just missed out, if they were able to play together at some kind of tournament as well, I would really, really like that. But, I mean, it's finding opportunity to do that, I suppose.
Yeah, well, basketball goes all year round, doesn't it? And people have commitments, and trying to, I guess, find the opportunities for that sort of tournament, and then having the players available given their commitments is probably difficult and challenging, as you say, Jacinta.
Yeah, we might have to just start our own tournament so we get to watch this game.
Yeah, that's right. Let's just get the World Cup back here again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, speaking of international tournaments, one of the things that hasn't got a lot of attention is the gliders. They've been over playing in the Asia Oceania Zone Championships in Thailand, and really they haven't gotten a lot of attention. Their record, they haven't had the wins that they were expecting, but I think also it's a fairly new squad that they've put together, and they've been doing well. They're starting to gel reasonably well. So I think it's a matter of time for them. But I'd really like to ask you both what you think in relation to could BA be doing a better job just letting people know about them. Because, look, they're great athletes, and I think they deserve to, more attention and more focus.
Yeah, look, I think, Paul, it's always, I guess, a challenge in terms of getting exposure to all of our national teams. And, I think our wheelchair athletes are incredible. They have great record, great history, and are always competitive, but don't seem to, as you said, to get the exposure that the Opals and the Boomers do. I'm not sure where BA sits on how they prioritising, I guess, promotion and opportunity through exposure for those teams.
Yeah, Jacinta?
Yeah, I agree. It is a real shame that they haven't had as much exposure as of our other national teams. I mean, if we want to really celebrate diversity and inclusion, it means that we got to give equal media time and airtime and access to all of our national teams, not just the Boomers and the Opals, and then trickle down. But yeah, it's I feel like it could have been better advertised of the results and things like how people can watch it. Just little things like that to make it as easy as possible to engage with it. But yeah, I really hope that they're doing well. It looks like they've worked really hard in the last 12 months to try and go on the recruit, because there's a lot of gliders athletes who haven't been in the program for some of them for a little while now, because there's a player local to the Central Coast named Steph, who is back in the gliders fold. She was doing some pre-tournament training with the legendary Liesl Tesh down at Woi Woi in preparation. So it looks like they've worked really, really hard to recruit a good team. So I really hope that they're rewarded in this tournament and qualify.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that comes to mind for me, Jacinta, is, the wheelchair with the local national sort of wheelchair competitions that are around the different leagues.
Yep.
They don't get, we have our national leagues that get, NBL and WNBL starting to get the exposure it deserves.
Yep.
So I think that, in order to be able to promote your national team, you need to have a showcase for the community and for the local populations.
Yep.
To start to engage there, so that you can then sort of bubble it up, I guess, and get sponsorship and start to bring all those sorts of things onto the table to enable, I guess, more opportunity for exposure.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
recently we had, actually I think it dropped yesterday, we had Sarah Houston on the pod, and she mentioned some of these things, and that the team has actually made a conscious decision that they're going to try and be more active on social media, be more active, get themselves out there more to bring more attention to the team, to try and attract the sponsorship. Because, look, from my opinion, I think they're a great opportunity for companies who want to get involved with basketball or with wheelchair sports, because it's a great team. They've got a high profile. The name is well known, and it's an opportunity to get involved at what would probably be a fairly low cost to enter into the sponsorship process and help to build the team up.
Yep.
Especially those companies that are specialised in wheelchair prescription and equipment. Like, to me, that's just a no-brainer of having a partnership between a company like that and a wheelchair sport.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's really obvious, and really hope that some of these can start to drop. Now, one of the other things I really want to talk about is, and this one's a little bit kind of off, not so much about the game per se, but it's more about the fans. I love these Canberra-Sydney matchups for a whole bunch of reasons, not the least of which is we're not that far apart as cities go. There should be, I don't know how we can organise or how it gets organised, but there should be an opportunity for fans or even members from both clubs to travel between the two. Because I know we came down and did to one of the games. We did a live pod from there with you, Michelle, and Phil Brown, and it was great. And it's a fantastic atmosphere down in Canberra. I think probably the biggest issue Sydney fans would have is getting in the door, getting a ticket. But I'm curious. I'd like to know from all of you, from both of you, what you think about the idea of having having some sort of travel between the two centres to be able to get to these games.
Yeah, look, I think it'd be great if the clubs kind of organised, I guess, like a supporters bus or something similar to that for these clashes, and if we built this up as a bit of a like Southside and Melbourne have the Michelle Timms Cup, right? So there's no reason why. I mean, there's a history between Carrie Graff with the Capitals and her time with the Sydney Flames. So why couldn't we look at something like that? Have supporters buses, particularly for those games, or something like that. I think it'd be great. I mean, I can see some Canberra uniforms sitting in the crowd now, so people make the effort to get here themselves. But if the club did something and drove it that way, I think that people would get on board.
Yeah, and obviously we've got fans like Nick, who's a very, very big supporter of the pod, who's always travelling between Sydney and Canberra to catch the games down there. Jacinta, I think, obviously as an ex-Caps player, you'd have your own opinion on this one. But I think getting the fans to do things, to have those opportunities, would be a great way to build up more opportunities to engage with the fans.
Yeah, and I think drumming up some kind of rivalry between the two. I mean, those kinds of sporting rivalries between teams, and how they want to drum up the rivalry between the Kings and the Jackies, or the Kings and the Hawks. I don't know why they're always inclined with men's sports. Why can't a women's sport also have a healthy rivalry, like making the Flames and the Caps as the M1 rivalry or something? But it's a little bit, for me, between the Caps and the Flames in particular, it can be a bit conflicting, because the Flames being the first team that I ever saw and was kind of my representation to pursue professional basketball, but then the Caps being the team that I played professional basketball with. But I feel like, it's probably a missed opportunity to get a little healthy rivalry, to increase some fan engagement. I think, UC Caps fan engagement is already very healthy and has been for a long time. But it would be a good way perhaps to try and get some more active and passionate fans of the Sydney Flames with a bit more of a voice.
Yeah, one of the things I think I'd like to see, if something like that could happen, is that you give a large block of seats to the Caps fans where they can sit together here at the Quaycentre and really make a lot of noise, rather than, maybe having them scattered around different parts of the seating.
Yeah, I think it'd be great.
Yeah, I don't know.
It'd bring some.
Yeah, you go, Michelle.
Yeah, sorry, Jacinta. I think it'd be great. You know, it would just add to the atmosphere of the game. And if fans are travelling, and whether it was Sydney coming to Canberra or Canberra coming to Sydney, you want to sit with your group, right? You want to be with your mob, so to speak, and be able to really get into the game and support your team. So I think there's some work that could be done there, Paul. You're onto something.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when we travelled down to Dandenong for the grand final game 2 in Melbourne, and they sort of had all the Sydney fans sitting in one block, massively outnumbered, but they made a hell of a lot of noise in that game, and it really added to the atmosphere. So the big question we got is this something that should be organised by the fans or the clubs? What do you think?
Clubs.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I reckon clubs. I mean, it's the club's responsibility to build the brand, get the fans involved, all that kind of business side, I suppose. I reckon it should be, at least, I mean, even if the idea or the initiative comes from a fan, I think it's still the club's responsibility to take the baton and run with it. But like you said, Paul, when you're able to sit in an away game in a block of seating with the rest of the fans from that team, every other sport do it. Even the NBL do it. So why don't we do it?
Yeah, it's a great way to get that engagement. They should be sitting together rather than sort of scattered around here or there. They can make some noise. They really help to boost the away team. It just makes so much sense, and I'm surprised that the clubs haven't really tried to find some way to make this happen. I'm sure they'll find enough fans who'd be willing to, okay, it's going to cost you this much extra to get bussed down and back. I'm sure that would work.
Yeah, I'm sure it would, and it'd be a great experience for fans. I mean, Jacinta, you know what it's like to be a part of a team and sit on a bus and travel to a game and travel home and just sort of, the friendships that you build and the relationships you build as players and athletes doing that. Why can't we have that kind of experience for our fans as well, where they actually get to know people a bit better and build those relationships amongst themselves as well? I think it'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Like, I can tell you about the times we went on a particular road trip and the games we played and how much fun it was, but I can't tell you the results of the games that we played. Like, I'm not going to remember that part. I'm going to remember the feeling and the experience and that sense of building relationships and nostalgia, rather than, oh yeah, that was the game where we won by 20 points or something like that.
Yeah.
That stuff doesn't matter in the end.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that the couple of times that we've been interstate for finals games. There's a core group that always goes, and that core group, they all get to know one another, especially if you do it a few times, and it helps to build that bond between the fans as well, and it also helps to build the bond between the fans and the club and make it stronger. And so, it's like you said, Jacinta, it's just good marketing to do that. Okay. Well, guys, we are getting close to tip-off, and obviously it's getting louder in here as we get towards tip-off time. So, look, I'd like to say thanks to you both for joining me on the show. Jacinta, enjoy. I'm guessing you're going to be watching the game on TV?
Yeah, definitely. This one's going to be close. I'm going to be sitting squarely on the fence with who I'm going for, and I want both teams to win for different reasons, so that's conflicting, but I will be watching at home. I've just popped some dinner in the oven, so I'll be all very well and comfortable come 7 o'clock.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Michelle, for joining us.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Jacinta.
And everybody who's listening into us, enjoy the game.